these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
As a member of Congress, I get to have a lot of really interesting people in the office. Experts on what they're talking about.
This is the podcast
for insights into the issues.
China, bioterrorism, Medicare for all. In-depth discussions.
Breaking it down into simple terms. We hold
these truths. We hold these truths.
With Dan Crenshaw.
The Eagle has landed.
All right, we're back, and today we have the two special guests, which is a cool way to do this. We have Kristen Soltis Anderson and Frank Luntz. These are two of the premier pollsters, commentators, communications professionals out there. I should say, Dr. Frank Luntz. Both of you have been on this podcast before. You have, right? Or have you not?
I don't think so.
What?
I never shot it here.
We screw that up.
Because you said I won't wear a suit. And you said you have to dress in an appropriate way, and you said my clothing was inappropriate.
No, I didn't.
So I just shut
I wouldn't have said that. Yeah, right. Unless you were dressed as a furry or something. I mean, that would be unexpected. Well, even then, I mean, it would get more views.
I don't even know what that is. I don't think all of your audience knows what it is.
Yeah.
I'm sad that your audience can't see his shoes right now. His shoes are incredible. They are sneakers with like a world map on
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Designer. It's like Gucci.
These were purchased in Dubai.
Okay.
And I wore them to meet the King of Jordan, which I was told by Mike Milken, do not do that. Wear shoes. I wore these. Milken is in full yell at me. The king walks in, sees my shoes, looks down, says, can you see Jordan on those shoes? I said, yeah, it's on my right shoe right here. You get the first question. No one has ever worn my country on their shoes before. I love it.
So can you call them Air Jordan Jordans?
Oh, that is.
But that was terrible.
That was great.
That's going to have to title the podcast, Bad Dad Joke.
I'm going to use that.
No, please. Oh, God. Why'd you do that? You created a monster. All right. Anyway, aside from all that, y'all are professionals in what you do. And we have we quite the series of events as of late. I mean, the assassination attempt, nothing like that's happened since Reagan, 1983. And of course, in this heated political environment, it is not nothing. I mean, it's such a serious issue. We're starting a investigatory commission on that here in the House. Not a single Democrat even voted against it. Everybody voted for it. Huge security failure. So you got that. And the political ramifications that comes with, and, how does that affect voters? I think we should get into that. But then you have, on the heels of that, taking down a president, basically. The Democrat Party internally taking down Joe Biden, getting him to withdraw from the race. Maybe can we start there? Who has insight into how something like that gets orchestrated? Any ideas? I mean, to me, it's it just further proof that Nancy Pelosi pulls a lot of strings in the Democrat Party, and I don't think people realize. But that's my take.
I assume that after the debate, which was a month ago, can you believe that it was only 1 month ago that this
feels like yesterday, actually,
all unfolded? That just so much has gone on that would have been somewhat unfathomable, I think, on June 26th. But a lot of voters already had a sense that something was not okay with President Biden, that he had been declining, that he was not the same guy he was 4 years earlier. He was not the same guy who debated Paul Ryan in the VP debate, that this was a changed man and that Father Time had not been kind. But it was the debate that I think woke up a lot of Democratic leaders who had been in denial and thought, well, ultimately, it doesn't matter how much the president struggles because enough voters feel negatively enough about Donald Trump that they'll kind of vote for whoever we move up.
Yeah.
And it is true that actually the national polls did not move a ton after that debate. That there were a lot of voters. I did a focus group for the New York Times, had a bunch of voters who were disappointed in Biden after having voted for him in 2020. This was a year ago. And they said to a person, all 11 people in this focus group, we don't think that Joe Biden will be able to serve another 4 years as president. And at the end of the group, I said, well, who are you all voting for? And all of them said that they were going to vote for Joe Biden anyways. So we were in such a polarized moment.
Which therefore means any Democrat.
Which would have meant any Democrat. So for a lot of Democrats, I think their leadership thought, let's not rock the boat. Let's stick with the guy we've got. We can figure it all out later. And voters eventually said, no. And enough of those numbers in the key swing states started looking ugly enough that that's when the pressure began to mount.
What worries me too is we've all seen these numbers, and I wonder if that's created an overconfidence from Republicans. I'm worried about that. And I myself go through it, right? I didn't have a lot of confidence, and then I had a lot of confidence that Trump could win. I still think he can win, but I just hope we're not overconfident.
So I will always remember watching Saturday Night Live, because Saturday Night Live during election season can sometimes be pretty funny. 2016, Lin-Manuel Miranda, peak of fame for Hamilton. He's hosting SNL, and he begins singing one of the songs from the musical as he's walking down the hallway. All of the people who have hosted SNL in the past. And he stops in front of the Trump picture and goes, "Never gonna be president now," which is a line from a song in Hamilton. And everyone laughs. And it was just like this moment where it was right after the Access Hollywood tape had come out, and Democrats felt supremely confident that they knew exactly how this election was going to go. Mm-hmm. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and obviously it turned out very differently. And it makes me concerned for Republicans that they seem to be engaged in, especially coming out of the convention where there was so much energy. Republicans felt very united. I think Republicans came out of that week feeling invincible. And it always makes me nervous when everybody suddenly feels like an outcome is predetermined. It's a foregone conclusion. We just have to get there.
And make no mistake, even though Trump won that debate, in reality, Biden lost. Yeah. Nobody was saying Donald Trump was brilliant, that he presented such a great case for himself. They were saying that Joe Biden is no longer presidential. He did the same session that night for CNN, and 12 undecided voters, 10 of the 12, ended up with Trump. Only one stayed with Biden, and the comments were all the same. I don't like Donald Trump. I resent Donald Trump. I don't like the way he talks to people. All these negative comments, and then there's the but. And the but is getting earlier and earlier in the communication. If someone says but after 30 seconds, I know that they're saying both sides. They were saying but in the first sentence. I don't like Donald Trump, but Joe Biden cannot be president. The challenge for the GOP is that the level of intensity behind Trump even surpasses Reagan. I'm old. I remember Reagan in 1984, the Proud to be an American and Morning Again in America. I thought that was the height. It is nothing compared to Trump supporters right now. And so they don't talk to Biden supporters or Harris supporters. They don't know, and there are too many people in America that don't know someone from the other side.
We're even an independent who's the swing voter. I mean, it's the smallest percentage, but yeah, I mean, I find this problem all the time too. I'm like, this sounds great, whatever it is, maybe this tweet or maybe this position or slogan you want to yell, if you're just trying to get your base amped up. But like, the thing is about our base is they're amped. Like we're good on that. You know, you got to do some persuasion so that Trump can win in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, what have you. And yeah, not enough of that has been done. And if what you're telling me, because here's what I'm hearing from both of you, is that Biden was our best chance at winning because everyone's saying he just can't be president. So that means there's a number of people who at least won't show up. They still can't vote for Trump, but at least they won't show up, and so Trump wins. I do think Kamala Harris is our second favorite pick, right? I mean, there's of that long list of Democrats that could have been the presidential pick. I still think she's our second favorite. Would you agree with that?
She's raising. I've never seen someone where feels like the media is galvanized behind her. This is not a coronation. She's become the Pope.
Yeah.
I'm old.
Democrats are real good at this. Surprisingly, I mean, she was so unpopular.
Yes.
And it's just, but when they want to win, they want to win.
And they've rewritten history. She was a horrible debater in 2019. She didn't do anything as vice president. She's got a rotten record. I got yelled at by I won't say who, but a host of a show because I said that voters didn't like the fact that she took nothing seriously. And then when she's being challenged in immigration, she laughed it off.
I've never been to Europe.
And the host criticizes me because he says, why don't they, and this is great for you to comment on, they only criticize Democrats for laughing, or they only criticize women for laughing, not men. These are legitimate questions. And again, she laughs them all. Am I being unfair, or is there a problem?
I think let's take this whole debate around whether she was the border czar as like a perfect encapsulation of how the next few months
today
are all going to go, right? Okay, first of all, there is technically no title in the government that is technically called czar. And so now we have this like splitting of hairs, right? There's not a lot of Democrats out there saying, you know what, I actually am here to defend Kamala Harris's record on immigration. She did a great job dealing with the root causes of migration from Central America. I'm not hearing any of that.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing this like weird kind of gaslighting. You know, I mean, so at CNN, there's Andrew Kaczynski, K-File. He's like the kind of opposition researcher guru at CNN. There's a progressive podcaster who was making a big deal about how she was never the border czar.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
It's crazy.
And K-File found a clip of this guy on MSNBC and saying Kamala Harris as border czar, blah, blah, blah. Like, this the exact guy. And it's the way that some of these media outlets are going back and like tweaking old headlines or effectively fact-checking themselves. But like that's the kind of fight that is going to continue to happen,
was
right?
An example of that. I think we posted about it today already. I did a video like Axios was like, she was never the border czar. And so then what they did is they went back to their old articles where they call her the border czar, and they did editorial correction like, this was incorrect at the time. She was never the border czar. Also worth noting is White House statements, official statements calling her the border czar. So that's as official as you can get in a non-appointed technical
And
position.
so I just think there's going to be a lot of attempt to move the debate away from something substantive. Let's talk about her record and whether she did a good job or not at addressing the root causes of migration from Central America. And there will be an attempt to deflect from that and make it debates about things that are not the debate. Yeah. Oh, was this her title? Well, no, that and that is.
And Trump team's just got to be ready.
Welcome to the next couple of months.
Should Trump debate her? There's some people who are like, Trump shouldn't even bother debating her. He's the front. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that's inevitable? How do you think this plays out?
I think that he should. I think that he demonstrated in the debate with Biden, which again was not a flawless performance by any stretch of the imagination.
But he's disciplined that he wasn't.
But he was disciplined.
That's all we needed.
He could have gone so over the top, and that it could have boomeranged right back on him, and he didn't. And so if he is capable of that, of keeping the debate on the substance, staying cool, it could accrue to his benefit.
Yeah, because she's not a good debater. I remember Mike Pence just absolutely destroying her at every turn. It's not hard, but you got to do some prep.
There's a simple question, so simple that it may not ever get asked. Can you name a single Harris accomplishment or result from the time that she was elected vice president? 3.5 years. Can you name just one? 70% cannot name anything.
So Trump just keeps rhetorically asking that
That's
debate
all
day long, and she'll just flounder.
But the thing is, that's subtle, and he's not subtle. That's under control, and he's not under control. And I realize that most of your listeners, a lot of them, are very strong Trump people. They have to be willing to hear this. It's very hard in Washington and even across the country to articulate anything that doesn't seem to go with a narrative, that we have to be more Trump than Trump, that we have to be more Republican than Republican, to a population whose deciding votes are not Trumpian and are not necessarily Republican.
Yeah.
If you're going to win, you not your district, but the districts that determine
my own district.
Independents. And by the way, the key for independents, they're not Republican, they're not Democrat, they're not taking a piece from one and a piece from the other. They're double rejectors.
Yeah.
They're independent because they don't like Republican, they don't like Democrat. So you don't want to represent exactly what the public doesn't like.
And in the end, they're people who, they're normal people, right? Like you could, I don't know, I wouldn't know to put a percentage to this, but I mean, your normal average American honestly isn't super invested in either one. It's not even that they reject both. They're just like, I just kind of live my life and I'm trying to get my kids karate practice. That's a huge segment of the population.
By the way, that's the difference. I don't know anyone who used the example of karate practice except for you.
I don't know.
Soccer, maybe.
Actually, when I say that, I often use different examples. I don't know why I say karate either. But in any case, they're parents that are worried about more normal things. They know a little bit about politics. A lot of these people are my friends, people I hang out with. Dan, when's your election coming up? It was 3 months ago. You didn't vote. Thanks a lot. That's why we have a 14% turnout rate. And it's also why, by the way, the most passionate extreme people take over our primaries. That's a whole separate discussion that we have time to get into it. But for now, let's stick to this. You got to persuade those independent, whether those independents are rejectors or simply apathetic. And I find more of the apathy. They might vote, but so they're going to vote based on like really just a feeling, kind of and it's not, they're not super passionate about issues necessarily, but it's going to be a kind of a feeling of who just seems like a better leader, who they can sort of trust more. They probably do have some opinions, conservative, liberal on some things, but for the most part, is that correct? And can you even apply maybe percentages to that of the population? How would you? I just guess when I talk about it.
So when I think about these kind of double hater type people you're talking about, I think NBC's polling pegs it at 25% or so. 1 out of every 4 voters is one of these kind of double haters.
That feels about right.
Who they don't like either side, and it is really critical to be the candidate who can peel off just a few of those folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in 2020, the double hater candidates broke more for Biden. I don't like either of these folks, but let's go with Biden. I think I'll be able to stun the negative things about him more than Trump. I think that dynamic has shifted a little bit. So my big question is, I'm sure you heard this as well in focus groups from a year or two ago, voters begging, please do not make me choose between Trump and Biden. Tell me this is not going to be a rematch again. Please give me something different. And now it's like, when you wish on the monkey paw, well, you got it. You have somebody different now. It's not a Trump versus Biden rematch anymore. But is a Trump-Harris election really what those folks wanted?
Yeah, I'm not
is
sure.
this in some ways actually maybe worse than what they were looking for, because you get all of the policies of Biden plus a track record that's more progressive?
Yeah.
I don't know that Kamala Harris is necessarily what those double haters were looking for in terms of, please, please, please give me somebody different.
What do we know so far on polling on Harris versus Trump, Harris in general?
So very little. It's still really early. I was in the field with a survey, and it came out of the field on Sunday afternoon, pretty much as the announcement was that Biden was not going to be running. And so at first you think, well, do I just have to throw this entire poll in the trash can? You don't. It's interesting. It's informative if you accept it as a snapshot in time. We were finding that Harris was performing a little bit better against Trump than Biden was, but only by a few points.
Yeah.
And once you're not a hypothetical candidate, you're a real candidate, things can change. I think the selection of Harris to take over from Biden, I don't yet know if it makes things easier or harder for Democrats, but to me, it widens the range of possible outcomes. For Trump and Biden, it was so stuck in this groove of just Trump is ahead by a couple of points. Trump is ahead by a couple of points. Trump is ahead by a couple of points. It wasn't really moving a lot.
If you made me bet, I would bet Trump's going to win.
Very much.
For sure.
But now the range of possibilities feels like it has opened more, because Harris has the potential to energize parts of the Democratic coalition that were just done with Joe Biden, but she also has the potential to lose or alienate voters that Biden uniquely appealed to, who could not see themselves voting for a progressive California.
Any Democrat that's pro-Israel. Yeah. I mean, her not showing up for Netanyahu's, she can claim it's an event got in the way and whatever. The visual is the visual. And, the Democrats are at a tough position there. They've got to make a choice. You either, you have to choose one side or the other. We're luckily not really in that category, although we do have a far right that's deeply anti-Semitic, but kind of always have been. So we don't know yet then. It was, you said, a couple of points better than Biden, which still means losing to Trump. So I guess that's good news for Republicans, but like you said, she energizes a different base, has raised a ton of money. What do you think about the fact that Joe's not resigning? I heard calls from our side to tell him to resign, and I was like, I'm not so sure if that's a good idea. First of all, the argument doesn't always make sense just because we decide we're retiring, whether it's, our final season as a quarterback for a big football team or a congressman, you don't just like automatically leave. Second of all, it gives Kamala Harris Air Force One, and it gives her serious decision-making power, whether that's on foreign policy or whatnot. I'm quite glad Joe Biden is not going to give her that, because I think that would give a huge advantage for the election against Trump. Is that maybe a good analysis?
Not running for 4 years, realizing that you can't serve, is not the same thing as 4 months. And I think it just makes the Republicans look mean, that there's a level of sympathy. People don't hate Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And I just wish that there was a little more heart in the communication. That's number one. Number two is, we know the groups that have shifted. Latinos, probably more than any other group, and they are absolutely up for grabs. And Harris does not have a good record on Hispanics. She's focused more on the Congressional Black Caucus than she has on the brown community. The one that I'm following, two of them, one of them is union members. That's why JD Vance was a reasonably good pick, because he comes from that world. It's who he is. It's not, we didn't write his speech. He lit his speech. This is his life. And then the group that I'm really focused on, and no one's done anything with this, is paycheck to paycheck voters. 24% of America, people who really do struggle every week or every month. They have trouble with housing and healthcare, food and fuel. They are 2-to-1 Democratic. Trump has made serious inroads. No Republican has, not even Ronald Reagan. Trump has found a way to talk to them, a way to relate to them.
What do you think that is? Is it because it's not policy? Well, I mean, you could argue that
it isn't policy.
Lower quintile of wages skyrocketed the most under Trump. That's a fact. I don't think they know that, though. So what is it? Is it just personality? What is it? Is it a feeling? What is it?
They feel ignored, forgotten, left behind, and the most powerful of all, betrayed. By the way, I have no way to communicate any of this, because other than on these TV hits, the politicians here in Washington are so focused on their ideas of what Americans want that they've lost touch with what Americans want. That I really do believe that they're not listening as well as they could. They're not hearing what they're being told, and then they're not responding.
What are the biggest things?
The most important thing of all is they still can't have meat as much as they want. They still have to decide how many times they need to go to McDonald's because they cannot afford something more expensive. They are making day-to-day choices that they don't want to make, that they feel that they shouldn't have to. They worked hard, played by the rules, got their kids educated, attend religious services, do all the things you're supposed to do, and volunteer in this community, and their life has not been good.
Well, what's the answer to that from policymaker perspective? Because my policy answer is, all right, so there's an inflationary aspect to that. You know, things are more expensive than they used to be, and our wages aren't catching up. So we need pro-growth policies that renew our supply chains and make things cheaper, because COVID disrupted them so badly. And now I'm getting really technical here.
That's not what it is.
And that's not what.
Stop wasting their money. In a single word, wasteful, 3 words. Wasteful Washington spending, which is how I started here, and it's back. And I don't hear any Republicans talking about it. Where are the Republicans for the dealing with the debt? Where are the Republicans dealing? They're adding.
The party just basically took it off the platform.
Yeah. What's that?
But the thing is
this is where I might disagree with you a little bit, insofar as you're right. There was a point in time where wasteful Washington spending and fiscal issues were very dominant. But in some sense, Donald Trump has remade the Republican coalition by kind of reshuffling the deck on the way we talk about economic issues. Just to your point, in the platform, issues like debt and spending kind of taking a back seat to things like growth. Donald Trump leaning very heavily into his businessman persona.
Those things would be true. Like, Donald Trump does want to spend, because he doesn't care about the debt. And I don't think these people actually care about the debt just as a policy issue. They're resentful, as you said. So they think money's being spent where it could be somehow helping them. And so now I'm forced into a position where I have to lie to them. If I want to win their vote, now I have to lie to them, because it's a lie. If I tell them that, okay, yeah, if we don't, if we spend less money on rockets for Ukraine, then all of a sudden your life is better and your meat's cheaper. I could, that's the populist argument. And look, some of my colleagues are happy to do that. But I'm not. And so I don't know, what do we say to them? 'Cause I hate lying to people.
So then tell them the truth about Social Security.
I do
that there is
all the time.
That there is no lockbox. And if you tell them the truth, they'll listen to you. Tell them the truth about Medicare, about promises that Washington made to them, particularly under this administration, that it has no ability to keep whatsoever.
Yeah.
But if we don't do that now, then we're going to be saddled with it.
Well, politicians have been lying to them about this for decades. So every senior citizen, when you even bring up these issues, they think, well, it's because you guys wasted all that money.
Yes.
Well, it's like, actually, no, that's not how the accounting works at all. But, it's simply a matter of demographics. They don't care. But because the lies have been ingrained so well over time that, and that, I see it as a generational issue. Like my generation getting totally screwed by the baby boomers on this particular problem. And people pointing fingers at totally the wrong places. And then populist politicians coming in and saying, what is it you think? Exactly right. And then boom, you get that trust and you get that vote. And so it's like, yeah, there's that percentage of people who have those thoughts, right? And they have those real problems.
Challenge it. The attribute that the voters want more than anything else in democracy, because we do rankings. I don't do you want to trust politicians? Do you want to hold them accountable? I don't do independent measurement. I ask people here, 15 attributes, choose the 3 that matter most. Nothing matters more than trust and truth. I'm waiting for someone like you.
I tell the truth a lot. You know how much trouble it gets me in? A lot.
No, it does actually, but it does not. Because this is why you're here. This is why you're a hero to so many people. You're not the average congressman.
Yeah.
You know you're much better known, that people listen when you speak because they expect the truth from you. And they don't expect the truth from this building, from this system. And I don't want to focus on the next election. I want to focus on the next generation.
Yeah.
I want to focus on restoring faith and confidence in democracy. This is a horrible phrase and you'll probably edit out, but I am the turd in the punch bowl. I don't want to be a Republican. I don't want to be a Democrat.
We've never been on this podcast. We can swear, we can do whatever we want. Fine. That doesn't make the cut of editing out. Sorry.
Okay.
You're the turd in the punch bowl.
Yes. Now you've emphasized that twice. We have to tell the truth. And that's us and them. And even if they lie, we have to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And it requires us to talk about these challenges, not every 4 years, but every 20 years.
Another question I want to ask you is so you think JD Vance brings in other voters Trump doesn't have? I mean, it might be, I'm not sure about that, right? I think JD Vance brings in MAGA Trump voters.
I don't believe that.
But I think Trump brings in those voters already.
But he communicates to them in a way because it's authentic, because it's who he is.
It's true, but aren't they already coming out to vote?
Yes. I wanted Tim Scott.
Okay.
I wanted Marco Rubio.
I'm just trying to get your opinion on that. Okay.
I wanted someone who added to the ticket, not someone who reinforced the ticket.
Yeah, he reinforces it for
because
sure.
Trump is so loud anyway.
Yeah.
That you don't need any reinforcement.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a very tough job to have because
Which part?
being
VP?
Donald Trump's running
or
mate.
being a pollster? Okay.
Well, I mean, we talked forever about being a pollster, being Donald Trump's running mate, because he is the center of gravity. He is the brightest shining, light that's going to blot out anything
The
else.
nominee is supposed to be, but he's exceptional.
He is exceptional in that. And so it would be very hard to be his running mate. And I wonder to what extent, right now we're in the midst of who will Vice President Harris choose to be her running mate. And I sometimes wonder to what extent any of this.
I'm scared about that. I don't know. And usually it doesn't. And I had this conversation with a Democrat colleague yesterday. And I think they're very overly confident about Kamala Harris. They're like, there's no way you guys can pin the border on her. Like they're all that, like that narrative is like saying this is like a really reasonable, like moderate Democrat. I'm like, I think we can. I mean, but thanks for the advice. I guess I got a tweet about it more because she was the border czar. It was the damn border czar. I don't care what you said. And she's a vice president. You have influence over policy. We'll leave that aside. Where was I going with that? I don't even remember. But The VP, the importance of the VP. I feel like in this case, her VP pick matters a little bit more than usual. That's just a feeling. What do you think?
Well, maybe it's to the extent that you're picking somebody to reassure anyone who is skeptical in the way that Pence was chosen to reassure when Trump ran the first time. I don't know that Vance was made as a reassuring pick so much as I'm trying to fire people up and, plant a flag in the ground for my vision of what the movement is over the long term. I do think Harris would be wise to pick someone reassuring. And here's where I say something nice and bipartisan. I think Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania,
That's a dangerous pick for Republicans.
Very dangerous. I think it's dangerous, one, because so the day after Donald Trump's near assassination, Governor Shapiro comes out, gives a press statement. And I'm sitting there at CNN on set at the Milwaukee convention, just kind of watching this unfold. You could not have told me from that speech what party Governor Shapiro was in, which is so rare in politics these days, that someone gives a speech and it's devoid of partisan anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was compassionate. It was caring about the family of the victim who died. It was really well done. And I thought,
and it's an important swing state.
If he's on the ticket, that's
so let's game this out. Let's say it's Shapiro, because that seems like if you're smart. Now that doesn't mean they'll make the smart decision. The smart decision would have been to make him the actual nominee. That would have been the smart decision. I guess there's problem. I guess one of the reasons they didn't do that is, I don't know. What are the reasons they didn't do that? I can't. Maybe there's a.
So Democrats,
there's a money issue
in some ways, Democrats have given themselves a big problem by this whole Biden drawing this out, and now they've got to quickly have this coronation of Kamala Harris. But the benefit is they don't have to have a candidate who has, at least within the last 4 years, gone through a primary where they have had to pander to the progressive base. Now, Harris's problem is she did this back in 2019. You already saw Dave McCormick's campaign in Pennsylvania.
She's as progressive as they get.
A devastating ad where it is not an ad saying, Kamala Harris wants to keep you from eating meat. Kamala Harris wants to ban fracking. It is Harris in her own words during that primary saying these things that are way outside the mainstream.
And that's all going to come back.
And that's all going to come back. But the benefit of somebody like a Whitmer or a Shapiro now, if they get to avoid having ever had to go through that process, is they won't have that same kind of record of really devastating sound bites of having to try to appease.
But that's an argument for making them the nominee now. Like in an open convention, just get it done right there. I'm surprised. I mean, I'm glad because, again, I think Biden's our first choice if we want Trump to win, but I think Kamala's our second choice. I think everybody else is a real danger.
But you may regret that. I've never seen, this is, I think, your expertise. I've never seen young women so excited, so energized. This is not Hillary Clinton because there were pluses and minuses to her. This is something completely different.
Yeah.
It may not last. This may be something where I regret saying it a month from now. But right now, young women.
But were those young women ever going to vote for Trump?
No, but they weren't.
But they were going to stay home.
Yes.
They were going to stay home.
And the other candidate I really think you should be watching is Mark Kelly.
Yeah.
Because of what happened to
he'd be dangerous too.
He's moderate, centrist, reasonably good speaker, doesn't set the world on fire.
He's an astronaut.
And
I mean, that's not nothing.
And he brings what happened to his wife into the conversation, which allows him to talk about guns in a way that no one else can.
It's hard. Yeah, for somebody like me to go right back at him with it. Yeah, these are dangerous times, politically speaking, for Trump. And we can't be overconfident for these.
By the way, these are dangerous times for the three of us. And you have a attitude of, I don't care. I would use the other word, but I'm not going to do it because I got yelled at once for saying it. Any one of us can get fired by saying something that we got the words wrong, or that our meaning was slightly off, or that somehow someone's offended and irritated by something that we said. The cancel culture is alive and well, and it's going to take people down over the next 100 days. And once again, I'm going to ask to go a little bit more broadly, that we're not just trying to figure out who wins this election. How do we get this country back? I would argue that the election is less important than we've lost freedom of speech. We've lost freedom of expression. The press no longer acts responsibly. I don't know what to do about social media, but I know how much damage it's doing to young people right now and their inability to have this kind of conversation. And no one's got the guts to take this stuff on. And if you do, God help you, you're going to get destroyed. So think more broadly. When does America become America again? And when does the United get put back into the United States of America?
Well, bigger topics. I'll do my best to, I guess that's sort of a question for me, so I'll try to answer. I mean, the United States has never been united. Not really. I mean, in certain cases, sure, post 9/11, World War II, things like that. But for the most part, political divisions are there to stay. And I always tell people, like, that's okay. I don't think that should keep you up at night, the fact that we have major political divisions. I actually kind of like that we're one of the last countries that have this really hardcore 50-50 split of very liberal and very conservative sides. I think that's very healthy. I think that's the natural state of humanity and has been for a very long time. You can call it liberal conservative. You can use Thomas Sowell's vision of the unconstrained and constrained mind. It is natural. And it feels, because conflict and disagreement always feels upsetting and uncomfortable. So naturally people feel like it shouldn't be there, but it is there, and that's okay. What isn't okay is the fourth grade level discussions, national discussions that we're having, as opposed to PhD level discussions, because we're a very modern society that should be an advanced civilization, and we should be having really detailed discussions about the tax code and arguing over that, and then maybe not solving it. But
a Jewish child should not be afraid to walk on a college campus.
Well,
it's 2024, and that's out of control all over the country. It's not just Columbia and NYU. It's not just UCLA and USC. It's happening everywhere. An African-American child should not be condemned because we've agreed on that.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much hate, and there's too great a willingness to dismiss bad behavior. They burned the flag. They took the flag down, right, 1,000 feet from here, at Union Station?
Yep.
That bullshit.
Yeah. That's bullshit that was allowed to happen. We put it back up last night.
Yes, good for you.
But that's, I agree with all that. We're working on all that. It's not like nobody cares about anything you just said. I mean, it's kind of what we do up here all day. But you need to win elections, and then you need to have sustainable majorities, and then you need to make change.
What worries me about the division we're experiencing today is not the existence of division. It is the roots of the division and the ways in which I worry that there are accelerants that exist today that didn't exist 20, 30, 200 years ago to make it worse. So what I mean by that is in political science, we have a term thermostatic public opinion. It basically means that the public acts like a thermostat. If things get too hot, it kicks in, it cools things down. If things get too cold, it kicks things in, it gets it a little bit more. So it does that left and right. If government starts getting too progressive, the public goes, whoa, wait a minute, and they pull it back to the right. And if things get too conservative, then the public kind of freaks out and it pulls things back to the center. This is why after one party wins a presidential election, the next party tends to win the midterm.
Yep.
The thermostat works.
Yeah.
I worry that our thermostat is breaking. I worry that nowadays, one, people get power and they think, well, I don't want the thermostat to kick me out of power. And so they try to find ways to break the thermostat to ensure that their own side's temperature will prevail, number one. Whether it's the push to pack the court or those sorts of things. Well, if the system's not letting my side win, then I'm going to break the system because it is the ends justify the means. That's number one. And number two, it is the powerlessness people feel. It's not so much that people think, I believe one thing and you believe another, and that's bad. It's that people believe, I think one way, you think another, and you are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve your goals, including harming me. And you have more power than me. And people feel powerless. And they feel that the other side actually has the upper hand. And they're the ones in a foxhole. They're the ones under siege. You're more willing to excuse and engage in extreme behavior if your perception is, well, the other side is doing it. And so that's like the death spiral that I'm concerned with.
And you guys do focus groups all the time, and I guess mine are more informal because I just talk to voters all the time. But one thing I certainly notice is that if you go to a Democrat activist meeting and a Republican activist meeting, you're going to get the exact same things said along those lines of the other side is winning. It's funny how much Democrats talk about how much better Republicans are at talking in terms of morality and compassion. And I'm like, what? Like, that's your entire shtick. Like, how are you? I mean, thank you for the compliment, I guess, but it's so untrue from my perspective. The other side always thinks the other side is winning, and probably way more than they actually are. I don't know how to stop that. I don't know what has caused that. I think it's probably an age-old phenomenon. I think everything's been amplified massively by social media because there's just been so much more information in front.
And that's what I mean by the accelerants, right? I think in the past, you certainly had people who feel a deep sense of grievance, a sense of loss. Politicians can speak to them. Populist messages, come and go. But nowadays, what's the incentive to try to turn the temperature down? Even though, we will hear in focus groups, I'm sure you hear this too, voters will say, I hate how divided we are. Voters agree that we're divided. Yeah. They say they hate how divided we are, but nobody knows how to get out of it.
But if somebody sends them an email, a fundraising email that says, I hate how divided we are, we should have compromise, that person's not going to die because they're just not that type of person. So that's where the incentive structure comes into play.
But the best example of failure was immigration. We all know there's a problem there.
Yeah.
We all know it's not working. Why do we not have legislation? I believe 10 years ago, they would have figured it out. Even 5 years ago, they would have figured it out.
Yeah, this last year was a very good chance that I think we'll regret in the future, whether, the Langford bill got shot up as soon as it saw the light of day, but there was space in that single moment in time for some law changes, even the slightest of law changes that would benefit the future Trump administration massively, because he would actually use them. And I agree. And that pisses voters off. It pisses those 25% that you're talking about. The ones who can't afford meat, there's complicated economic arguments as to why that is. They don't really care about. To your point, they're like, look, we're spending money somewhere else. There's people coming across the border. Nobody seems to care about that. I do my job and I can't afford the steak I want. And I used to be able to. So I get that anger and I can, but I can't lie to them either about what the solutions are.
No one's asking you to, but they are asking you to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Which is what you do. And you can't say that about a lot of members here.
I think I think what they need is for some of those problems to be taken off the table so they can feel like they can breathe. Even if it's not the problems that affect them, even if it's like immigration happening across the country, that they don't even see it themselves, but they see it on social media. And it just gives them a sense of anxiety. It's like, we got to take those things off the table.
Why don't we establish a BRAC commission? Why don't we do the same thing with bases, what we did with them to get the bases closed? Why don't we do that with spending? Why don't we do some sort
under the debt ceiling negotiation, there is a bipartisan commission that deals with entitlement. It's the only way to do it. It's like you said, it has to be bipartisan. It's unfortunate. I view it as a generational fight. There's left and right fights within that, but it is truly the younger generation versus the older generation on that. And we've got to present it that way because that is a sensible way to produce it. I don't think older citizens want to screw their grandkids, but you have to tell them the truth about what's happening, that you are screwing your grandkids if you're advocating for policies that just increase your benefits and, tax the rich. It's not as simple as taxing the rich, as we all know. But again, you're getting into the details on entitlement reform.
But that goes back to our educational failures.
Yeah.
Basically, whatever you're going to say, I'm going to find a root cause for it, because we stop going to root causes. We allow our teachers to get away with teaching nothing.
Yeah.
My students...
We need civics courses.
My student at USC, I don't know if you want to bring this up on this podcast.
I don't care. No, we had a great experience.
It was embarrassing. I'm doing this podcast.
See, I enjoy that shit so much that I still feel bad about it. It was like 3 years ago. I don't know why. But I went and spoke to, just for the audience. So I went, you had a group of USC students and they're mostly foreigners. It was a certain kind of program, if I recall. I don't know. But yeah, they just peppered me with typical kind of left-wing questions. But I live for that stuff. I love it. I love the battle. It's so,
This one student kept asking the same question 4 times. And after the 4th time, he says to her, look, you can keep asking me the same question. Now I'm going to keep giving you the same answer. So we're kind of wasting time here.
Yeah, I don't remember what she was asking about.
Climate.
Oh, climate change.
She wouldn't get off it because she disagreed with him.
Yeah.
They don't teach them how to ask questions. They don't teach them how to think critically. They don't teach them vocabulary or how to write. They don't teach them how to present, how to do conversations like this. They don't know the history. They don't know the government. There's so much that they don't know that we would have taken for granted when I was a kid, which is a long time ago. And we are going to continue to have this problem until we actually stand up and say, no more. You're going to know what the Declaration of Independence was. You're going to know the root cause of the Civil War. You're going to know these facts. You're going to know the people who made the changes in American history. You're going to know how a bill becomes law. My favorite T-shirt that people still stop me over is I got the Full House Rock shirt.
Yeah.
A bill becomes, I actually wear it. I got it in a few weeks ago. And everyone stops me to say, why can't we air that back on TV again?
I know. I should post it just for a good like Sunday random content post. But actually, I've actually written out like 7 or 8 civics lectures for yet to be published for that reason. I would call it unconventional civics, but we need a lot more of that.
So right now, on my way walking here to this office, I stopped because there were a group of young women wearing American Legion, Girls Nation T-shirts. I did that program in 2001. It was my first time ever walking in this building as a high school junior, rising senior. And they're here today. Today is their day where they are walking around the Hill now, 23 years later after I did it. So these programs still exist. Your local high school surely has a debate team. These things exist. They just need, well, one, they need more support. And two, I think they do need more people from a wide range of perspectives to engage. So high school debate is something I'm very passionate about. But last year, there was a pretty big scandal around, I say scandal. Barry Weiss's The Free Press did like a really, in my view, kind of heartbreaking coverage of how even high school debate now, you have these like college kids come back and they're like, if you don't have the Marxist perspective, I won't look for you to win this round. Like even that's kind of started to become a little bit polluted. So it's important, I think, especially for conservatives, don't walk away from these and say, oh, well, these are terrible. I'm going to take, like, engage.
Exactly.
Be there,
we
be
too often
present.
this like idea, don't go to college. Like,
I'm going to start a conservative, no, engage, be there where people are, who are those, the apathetic folks you're talking
The
about.
other thing I tell conservative students at colleges, they're like, what should I do? And I'm like, you can learn. Because here's the thing, it's like, they don't know what you think. I learned this at Harvard. I wasn't a politician at Harvard, but I was conservative. I had no intention of getting even into party politics. I wanted to be in a policy walk. And, but everybody knew I was conservative. So we'd have those discussions and whatnot. But I quickly realized that I was just learning constantly what they thought, and they have no idea what conservatives think. So they're actually very easy to beat in debates on any subject. It takes a very, very smart one who actually bothers talking to Republicans every once in a while, which is very few of them. To know what you think. But I tell kids, like, you don't have to make a big stand at your school. Enjoy your school, enjoy your college life, but definitely soak it in, learn, take what they're saying. And look, you can either deliver the counter arguments on the spot. If you want to be that, get into it, sure. But at the very least, take notes of what they say and then figure out what the retort is later and file that away. In our limited time left, I do want to ask the kind of switching back to elections. So we talked about the presidential election a lot. It's a totally changed dynamic. What about the Senate? What about the House? What do you all, I should know this, but I really don't.
So I'll take the Senate. So the Senate is fascinating because of the nature of it, where everybody's up every 6 years, you have this constantly changing map. Mm-hmm. And this is a map that really favors Republicans. A lot of the states where senators are up for election are Democrats, and they are Democrats who the last time they were on the ballot was that kind of blue wave in 2018.
Yeah, it's like in Montana.
Just like I was talking about the thermostat, right? That was the thermostat going, ooh, Trump's making things a little too hot. Let's cool it down. And they voted in a bunch of Democrats, or reelected a bunch of Democrats in red states. This is a different environment. Donald Trump will be on the ballot. So you've got to think, how many voters are in Montana who are genuinely going to say, I'm voting for Donald Trump, but I'm also voting for John Tester? How many people in Ohio do you think are going, I'm voting for Donald Trump, but I'm also going to vote for Sherrod Brown? And there's just state after state after state like that in this map, where you have Democrats in purple to red territory, states that are likely to vote for Donald Trump, even if this election kind of goes a little bit south for the GOP. I don't know how many split ticket voters exist in 2024.
Yeah, so
There may be a lot
GOP
of
has
them,
pretty
but
good chance to get taken. Those like Montana, like West Virginia seems obvious. Ohio seems obvious. Montana is a little shakier from my understanding, but I'm not so sure. Then what do you think about Nevada?
Take a look. Yes,
But then we got Maryland. Is Maryland like a kind of an extra bonus point for Republicans? How's Larry Hogan doing there?
that would be a lovely bonus point for Republicans. I think for him too, he got very lucky in that we've talked about the primary process, sometimes meaning that who gets through is not somebody who's able to really unite. Larry Hogan benefited greatly from the fact he did not have to change who he was to become the Republican nominee. And I think there are too many instances.
Governor. Like he's got to win that.
I think Republicans shoot themselves in the feet too often by, and Democrats sometimes they've started to do this a little more, but the sort of demanding, I want someone who fires up the base, and you wind up nominating someone who's actually not the most quote unquote electable. Larry Hogan actually being the Republican nominee for Maryland is nothing short of a small miracle for him, and leaves that seat in play in a way that almost any other Republican in Maryland
nobody would have a chance, but he definitely does. Thoughts on that?
Well, the House, the generic ballot is virtually even. There are times when Republicans get a 1 or 2 point advantage, times when Democrats get a 1 or 2 point advantage. It's basically 50-50.
Isn't 50-50 usually good for us?
Yes.
Historically?
The line, and Kevin McCarthy studied this more than anybody else. And what he found was, as long as the Democrats had a lead of 2 points or less, the Republicans win the majority. The problem was in 2022, Republicans didn't turn out. And once again, that whole abortion issue brought a whole lot of voters, young voters. They still don't vote proportionally, but they participated in enough numbers to change the outcome.
And some states were very clever about how they got it on the ballot. There's a whole history to that.
And they're doing it now. They're doing it again.
In which states are they doing that?
A dozen of them.
The ones that matter, like the swing states?
So Florida is a really interesting one, where Florida is highly likely to vote for Donald Trump, is a pretty solidly red state these days, but also has both abortion and marijuana legalization ballot amendments on the ballot.
What's their abortion amendment on the?
It is an amendment that would basically enshrine protection up until viability for abortion access. So kind of just Roe, but for Florida. And that's on the ballot. And I would not be surprised if you don't see a significant number of people who vote for Donald Trump and then vote for that amendment further down the ballot.
And that would reverse the law they already passed. Didn't they pass a pretty strict abortion law in Florida? I don't remember what it was.
So originally DeSantis passed one that was a 15-week ban. Okay. And that was, a lot of the polling I've seen suggested that's actually
popular,
a reasonably popular position. But then in advance of this year, it was moved to 6 weeks. Yeah. And that is now current law in Florida.
Okay. I mean, you got to have two positions on this, right? It's like the moral position, because I think it should be zero. Zero. I don't understand why 6 weeks is more or any more valuable than 2 weeks, but that's just my philosophical understanding of human life. But there's a political reality to it as well. I still think it's easy to defend a heartbeat bill, because that's what we're calling a 6 week bill. It's a heartbeat bill, but I don't know. So that's going to be on the ballot, and that affects. It doesn't affect. I don't think it affects Trump, but it might affect some races that maybe are competitive in Florida.
Well, it's the turnout question to what Frank was saying, that there may be some voters who otherwise would have thought, I don't know that my life is all that different if candidate A or candidate B wins, but who thinks, wait a minute, this is my chance to.
Especially.
The Republicans have the advantage in redistricting. North Carolina, New York. In some states where the Democrats tried to go too far, they got punished for it. They had their hands clapped and rewrote the districts.
Finally.
And but I also want to assert clearly, so there's no doubt, there is no voter suppression in this country. Anyone can vote. In fact, probably that's the problem. That's more of a problem. If you can vote on any day for 4 weeks, if you can vote early or absentee.
That's the problem is the opposite, right? It's like the Democrat claim of voter suppression is so on its face absurd.
But they make it and people start to believe it.
Yeah.
The House should stay Republican, but by a narrow margin. And to be blunt, and you may disagree with me, it's not a record to write home over. It's not been a particularly successful 2 years.
Well, it has.
I'll let you and some other
Of course.
podcasts defend it.
No, I'm not.
So I think that they're going to end up, so I could see Republicans losing a couple of seats, and I can see them having a majority of up to 10, but it's that narrow gap.
So we're going to win the House, probably going to win the Senate. It's hard to see. Is that an agreement? Probably win the Senate by a narrow margin, or you're not even sure?
I would not make that call right now.
How many seats do we need? What do we need to win?
One
One
ties it and 2 wins it.
So what do you think we definitely win in the Senate?
I will say West Virginia.
That's about as
West
comfortable
Virginia.
as I.
Yeah, but it's not that obvious.
I will go back to what
I
I
actually give Maryland like higher chances than like maybe.
Think about everything
Ohio
that's
and Montana
happened
right
in
now.
the last month, and we have 3 more of those to go. This is why I'm uncomfortable making strong predictions.
That's your job.
I
Come
know.
on, Rob Hundred.
I realized, by the way, I almost quoted Lennon on air. You know that line, sometimes nothing happens for decades, and then a decade happens in a week?
Yeah, that's been like every week for the last like.
I know, but I almost said it on air, and then I stopped it. It's like, I don't think the Republican contributors should be.
I was hoping you almost quoted John Lennon rather than
just say it's that Lennon. Yeah, he said some funny things too. Okay, so in other words, like we can't let our guard down. I mean, we just can't. Like everything changes on a weekly by weekly basis, and people got to get out. People got to get interested. And my message to Republicans is always, what screwed us in the House is this need to appear to fight for your constituents when in reality you're preventing Republicans from getting small conservative wins. Our appropriations process right now is a great example of that, where we can't get some pretty conservative appropriations bills over the finish line because any couple of members are like, well, it doesn't go far enough. I'm a purist. It's like, just to be clear, what you're advocating for and the path that you are now establishing is a non-conservative Senate omnibus bill. There are only 2 options here. You either give yourself a starting point for negotiation in the appropriations process, or you refuse to. There is no third option. And I'm so tired of so many members lying to voters and making them believe that there's this there's this other punching bag that I could hit, but we just refuse to hit it. And it's I'm like, guys, there's no punching bag over there. There's nobody there to shoot. There's no target. It's a lie.
Yeah, but that's what cost Kevin McCarthy his job. That's what could cost Republicans the majority. Less stuff is passed this year that is legitimate legislation because it's not right-wing enough.
Mm-hmm.
It cuts a lot, but it doesn't cut that extra $50 billion.
Right.
And the problem is they end up compromising. And so they end up actually cutting less, or they end up because of purity. And I'd say that these districts, and you're kind of in one, where they're so Republican that you can't go far enough. You can't please.
No. My incentive structure, and I do what I do. Like I just tell them the truth. It's way easier for me if I just pulled the old, just only voted no on everything, and told voters what they wanted to hear. My numbers would go up. I mean, it would just, and that's frustrating. I'm trying to change that because I don't think it's okay to lie to voters. And I tell voters, like, don't be so easy to lie to either.
So this thing should not just go to your people. You should do everything you can to get this to other Democrats. You should trade lists. The truth is, we will be better off, as you say, when we are fully informed. So you need progressives to see this. You need to see our conversation that happened right here. That's what makes us stronger. If I understand you, I can't hate you. I can only hate you if I misinterpret you.
But understanding the other side is also just smart politics. As you noted, being on campus at Harvard and absorbing what the other side thought made you sharper. I think when I think back to that 2016 election, I'll go back to right where we started, where I'm nervous about this confidence, this overconfidence I feel on the Republican side. In 2016, you had so many people who thought, I just cannot wrap my mind around the thought process of someone deciding to vote for Donald Trump. And because I cannot fathom it, it must not be real.
And the exact opposite is true too by Trump voters. They can't fathom why anyone hates Trump.
Well,
They say that all the time.
I feel like in this election, it's going to be Trump voters feeling like, I cannot fathom why someone would vote for Kamala Harris.
Right.
They're going to look at YouTube montages of her laughing. They're going to look at her, the coconut tree thing, and her saying the unburdened 17 million times. And they're going to think, how can anybody possibly vote for her? And the reality is millions of Americans are about to. And if you're a Republican, you better hope it's millions fewer than who are going to vote for your guy, but that is not guaranteed.
And if you're a Republican, you've got to figure out what changes their mind.
Yes.
And that's why we talk to you guys.
And
you guys do focus groups. That's why you do poll. And that's why I do podcasts to send out to people. So, and unfortunately we're out of time because I got to catch a flight. But Frank, Kristen, thanks so much. This is one of our best.
Thanks for
one of
having
our best conversations, and I think really timely. So thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.